We're waiting for a few more minutes for people to join us, and we'll start hopefully, in 2-3 more minutes. Thank you very much. Okay. Hello, everyone from Reykjavik, live from Reykjavik. You see behind me a real scenery. It looks like one of those virtual ones, but it is real. And you will see over the next 5 to 10 minutes, it will go all dark because I think indeed the sunset is any minute here in Reykjavik. So welcome to you all. We are really excited to have this Leaders Talk panel organized by the European Investment Bank together with the Reykjavik Global Forum, Women Leaders. Today, it is going to be a virtual panel, as you can see, with really some quite impressive women entrepreneurs who have come to our attention via our social innovation tournament that our European Investment Bank Institute is running every year. So let me, in order to set the stage and before we launch into what will be a very fascinating conversation, I'm sure, with our 3 panelists, let me just give you a bit of background. So EIB, the Bank of the European Union and the EU Climate Bank, is currently also actively not only supporting the climate agenda worldwide, but also really building up its gender smart investment capabilities. Now, we are living in truly historic times. And I think this, I would say this week or this current weeks that we're living in are really indeed going to be quite impactful if we get the right mindset and leadership. We are having COP26 happening as we speak, and today is the Gender Day. The EIB actually launched today, it's together with the EBRD and the CDC, two times a gender smart climate finance guide as part of this joint task force to really raise the awareness that investors, companies, society at large can no longer disregard the role of women in the green economy, in greening our economies. And I think today is going to be an excellent example where we hear concrete stories and success, and how women are actually doing this. Now, the European Investment Bank, and let me introduce myself briefly. I'm Shiva Dustar, heading the Innovation Finance Advisory within the EIB. So we have also been looking at this topic of women entrepreneurs for a while. In fact, last year, we published a study, which you can find on our website. So let me briefly advertise it. It's called "Why Are Women Entrepreneurs Missing Out on Funding?" It has some really interesting findings and also recommendations. And we're currently really trying to actually implement some of these recommendations. The findings suggest that the glass is both half full as well as half empty. There are quite still a lot of barriers when it comes to financing, the access to finance for women entrepreneurs. Roughly 11% of the investments, VC investments, go to women-led companies, and this data is actually pre-COVID. It is likely that, unfortunately, with COVID, things have gotten worse, but also that we don't have a very diverse investor community, which may further increase the barriers for women to have good access. Now, the glass is also half full in the sense that there are really quite an amazing pool of talent and companies that are coming up. And again, we will meet 3 of them today, of women that are really breaking all sorts of ceilings and barriers. And they are, clearly, increasingly, we realize that women are part of, not only part, they're key to the solution. And they are doing so with new thinking, new business models, new mindsets. So now, when it came to recommendations, and the report actually outlines sort of the various categories. We looked at it from a policy perspective, from financing, advisory, and raising the awareness. And events like today are actually very much part of the role that we see for the EIB to give women entrepreneurs a platform where we can raise their visibility. We can help help these companies to have better access to financing, not just from the EIB and all the various instruments that we have, but also from other investors, because certainly raising awareness of companies and also towards the investors that there are some really quite compelling investment opportunities by women entrepreneurs is really key to the success. But we are also doing a proactive outreach towards women founded companies to make sure that they are aware of the sort of support, both advisory and financing, that the EIB and through our network of investments in the venture capital world, through our subsidiary, the European Investment Fund, can provide. So this is sort of the big picture. And now let's maybe sort of go to go to actually the link of women entrepreneurs and climate. What was quite fascinating, when you look at our executive summary of our report, we have a statement in it which, in hindsight, is quite interesting and makes the point quite clear. It says, the world over, one of its best assets is underrepresented, undervalued, and unevenly treated. Here we are referring to women as being this underrepresented, undervalued asset. But if we were not in this particular panel, you may actually read this and think of nature. And this is precisely where it is fascinating to see how women and nature, by the current system that we live in, are indeed undervalued. And perhaps this is where, therefore, the link of women and climate is going to be so intricate, and how women can actually really not only redefine their own value and contribution, but also help us to come up with these nature-based solutions, just like gender-based solutions, that ultimately will help us really tackle climate change. So with that in mind, let me now introduce you very briefly by name, our three panelists, and I will give them each the floor to introduce themselves, not only themselves, but also the companies that they're representing. So let me start with Florence, Dr. Florence Geschwenz. She is the CTO and also the co-founder of Lixia. And I have to say, when I read about your background and what you're doing, I was just flabbergasted. So you are trying to green the waste of the chemical industry. And we look forward to hearing from you how you're planning to do that, how your company is doing this and planning to really scale that up. Then we have Adriana Mano, who is the founder of Zuri shoes. Now that, I have to say, again, one of those fascinating stories, and to see how you are planning to solve our plastics problem and make shoes out of the plastics that is waste in the oceans. And then we have Sandra Ray, who is founder of Glowy. And again, as the name is, I guess, suggesting, you have found a technology that is, I guess, producing light from bacteria in the water. So you will, I'm sure, tell us more about that in a second. And so without further ado, maybe let's start with Florence. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Shiva, for the introduction and for having me here. Yes, you mentioned I'm the CTO and co-founder of Lixia. We originally spun out from Imperial College in London in the UK, where I did my PhD. So I have a very technical background. I did a chemistry undergraduate degree and then a PhD in chemical engineering. At Lixia, we're now 15 people in total, and most of us are still scientists or engineers. And the chemical process that we're developing is a biorefining process. So we're trying to use waste wood and other wood-like materials like cereal straws, for example, to turn them into input materials for the renewable chemical industry. So we're trying to replace petroleum in the production of fuels, chemicals, materials, etc. So obviously very important for climate change as we're displacing petroleum. So trying not to dig out more fossil fuels from the ground and instead work with what grows on our planet, and especially focusing on things that are either burned or landfilled at the moment. So a lot of waste wood gets burned or landfilled, which emits CO2 and methane, which is a very potent greenhouse gas contributing to climate change. And the same is true for a lot of agricultural residues, which are also contributing to a lot of air pollution problem, for example, in Southeast Asia, which has also health effects, of course, so respiratory problems. So we're really trying to combine those two sides. So the fossil fuel dependence that our chemical and fuel industry has, and also the way we treat residual streams that we don't have a use for at the moment, and combine those two. So we're really trying to build a platform technology which together with a lot of other technologies that are required to solve this puzzle, because it's a huge, it's a huge challenge, and we're obviously not a one solution for all problems. But yeah, we're really seeing this as like a platform that could hopefully really make a difference.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Florence. And I'm sure we'll hear a bit more about both the challenges, but also the amazing opportunities in a minute. So moving on to Adriana.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Shiva, for the presentation. So my name is Adriana. I'm the founder of Zuri Shoes. My background, I started to work mainly as a consultant in business, and then I fell in love with design. And I started studying shoes. I've been working in shoes for almost 15 years. And 4 years ago, almost 5, at the same time, I was an activist for the ocean. So I was participating in a lot of initiatives connected with cleanup actions, awareness programs. And one day in one action that we were doing nearby our city, cleaning the beach, someone asked me, did you ever imagine to use this waste in a shoe? And it was something like a hobby. I started thinking about it. And one day the university here in my hometown, Min University, presented an award. So we could apply with the ideas for products made with waste. And we win that award. And I think that was the moment I really start believing in my idea, mine, and it's not only mine, these activists, these people that together with me and other NGOs do this activist work. And we started developing the shoes. So basically what we do is we have a lot, after almost 4 years of work and 2.5 years of company, we worked since. We can start with Blue Flag is our partner. All plastic collected in Portugal by Blue Flag comes to Zuri, until the small NGO that works in a hometown collecting plastic in the ocean. So we have this networking. There's no companies. So we are talking about schools, municipalities, NGOs, institutions, that we not only have this work of reusing the plastic in the shoes, because we don't recycle, okay? We reuse, and we reuse all kinds of plastic, because as you know, or mostly everyone knows that PET, we can recycle, and polyester, but all the rest of the plastic, most of them, we don't have a solution, and they go to the landfill or to be incinerated. So what we analyze is that we need to reuse. So we have we are connected to all these good people, these institutions that want to solve the problem. But what I think we have is also very special, and that gave us, I think, the award with the European Bank, was that we have an awareness program in the schools here in Portugal. So they do the cleanup actions with us, and then we have a whole program that we do with them to push the idea of reusing. So creativity as a tool, and you have to take responsibility about the waste you generate. And when you take it home, you have to have an idea what you are going to do with it. So what we do in schools, that we give a lot of ideas of the type of waste they generate in school, and what can they do simply with basic tools to reuse it, to give value to something that doesn't have value. So this is our aim. That is our main is waste as a raw material. So to push this idea, and we really believe that more than technology, because I believe creativity is a technology. So it's all about pushing our ability of being creative, even in our homes and houses and work, little things that we usually put in the recycle bin or in the garbage, and we can for sure be creative and create something with it. So in terms of concept, we are that. We can say in this 2.5 years, we reached last year 400,000 revenue, 4 tons of plastic collected, and we are 5 as a team. So I think I resume, Zuri. Thank you so much.
Wow. Maybe Adriana, just tell us, where can we buy your shoes?
So you can buy online. We deliver all while. And in Europe, we are represented in all countries, mainly, I think, maybe Italy, we just have one store, but we have, and outside Europe, United States and New Zealand.
Excellent, excellent. Wow. And if I remember correctly, every shoe is made out of 8 bottles of plastic, right?
Yes, the outsole, we just use the plastic in the outsole. But then every component in our shoes have like a story, because it's just very shortly. For instance, in winter, we use apple leather and Pinatex, that is pineapple leather. So these two materials are also made with fruit waste. In Pinatex is the leaf of the pineapple that is used, of course, mixed with a polymer. So it's not 100% sustainable, but when we compare it with a microfiber, it is 100% petroleum based. I do believe when we started, Pinatex was the only one. Right now you have the apple leather that just has 40% of a polymer. So my belief is, I usually say materials are the most challenging part of the story, because we collect the plastic here in Portugal, we produce 100% in Portugal, but then when we start thinking about the upper materials and say, okay, what do you have? What do we have to use? And then you see organic cotton made in the other side of the world. Rubber comes from Brazil. So when you see where it's also the climate, it's where the things grow. So it's impossible to grow cotton in Europe. So in the end, to give you this example, we have organic cotton from a German company that has their own plantation in Kurdistan, and is fair trade in plantation and transformation. So usually I say we don't select suppliers. We usually just found that supplier that seems that is really connected with our vision that is holistic. So it's impossible that you collect plastic in Portugal and then you produce in India using the rest of the materials are very bad for environment. So you have to think it's impossible to think about sustainability without thinking in fair trade, without thinking in human rights. So everything is connected. So like Florence was saying, it's like a big puzzle, and very challenging every day and there's a lot of greenwash in the middle also, that a lot of people saying that have good materials, and in the end it's not true. So hard work also.
Oh my God, yes. No, but you're touching on a lot of issues that we will come back to later on, the supply chains and so on. But before we do that, Sandra, you have some reinforcements, which is quite nice. So floor is yours to tell us about Glowy. And if you want to have your team, if you want to have your co-founder of Glowy join you.
I'm sorry about that.
No worries at all.
Well,
nice to have you both there.
That's life, yeah.
Exactly.
She say hello. C'est bien. So my name is Sandra Ray. I'm the founder and CEO of Glowy. Glowy is an environmental biotech startup. So what we do is that we use marine bacteria that are able to produce light, just like some fish, jellyfish, or basically 80% of marine organisms do. Yes. The goal behind that is, of course, to create this new biological industry in lighting with using a biosourced and biodegradable material. So with this bacteria, we create a lighting system that are able to produce light, continuous lighting. So it's a bit like we're producing kind of aquariums in which our bacteria grow and are able to really not only change the whole industry in terms of material, but also in terms of lighting capacity, lighting quality. The light is very soft. I'm sorry, it's hard to concentrate. Oh my God. sorry. And so the specificity that my background is not scientific at all. I've been doing some design studies, and it was basically a student contest at the beginning. So I started working on the sliding issues on this contest about biology, and I was like, okay, these animals are able to produce particle light. We have problems in the lighting industry that are tackling climate change, both in terms of use of materials, but also in terms of impact on biodiversity through light pollution. And we're like, okay, if today we have technologies like biotech to reproduce what nature is capable of doing, basically using this balancing technology, maybe it will be the solution to change the way we produce and consume light, and maybe just enlighten as a whole. So we're starting that 7 years ago. We did a lot of research and development to create lighting systems that are intense enough, because at the beginning it was barely visible with the eye. We needed maybe 15 minutes of getting used in darkness to see dimensions, and today it's a light that it can be competitive to other kind of lighting. So we made a lot of progress on that, and today we're working with a lot of different municipalities, energy companies, urbanists, architects, in order to build what will be the next biological lighting industry.
Wow, this is really very impressive. And I was just, when I saw your beautiful daughter on your lab, I was like thinking, what an amazing role model you are already for her at such an early age. So really, she's very lucky to have you as her mother. Now, I mean, let's maybe, you have, all three of you touched on areas, on industries. I mean, you're operating in industries that are, I would say, quite male dominated in one way or another. And what would be quite interesting is sort of to hear your reflections on what is ultimately distinguishing, why you believe you may have actually a competitive edge as women entrepreneurs coming into a very perhaps male dominated or very homogeneous environment and shaking it up the way you are, in how you're doing that from and the opportunity that you see, but also reflecting on the challenges that you see. So maybe Florence, we'll start with you.
So the chemical industry is, it's extremely male dominated. It's also I would say on average quite old industry, and it's certainly true. So when I attend like trade shows or conferences, I often find that the only people that look like me are salespeople, and coming as someone who's done a PhD in chemistry and chemical engineering, coming to the table, it's I need to overcome so many prejudices in a way. So first, people think I'm a salesperson or I have no clue what I'm talking about. Obviously, I'm still very young compared to many people that I need to speak to. I have to say, it's not always the same. Some people are, extremely open-minded and listen and take me seriously. But it does happen that if I have a male colleague there, that they would maybe quite unconsciously as well, just look at him more than at me, even when they ask technical questions. So I think it's certainly a matter of making sure that women are visible and that we feel empowered to be the technical experts that some of us are, that we don't have to be a salesperson or fulfill these roles that have traditionally been given to women. So this is certainly something that as a company, now that we're a bigger team, are still very conscious about. So also when we advertise for new positions, we're very careful with the language that we use. There is, for example, websites where you can upload your job descriptions and it picks up on any sort of gendered word that you might have. And just making sure that we're there and we're visible and other women see us. And with that, just kind of, try to slowly change the system. But it is very tiring at times. And I think that's also something that needs to be admitted, that like we can probably achieve the same thing, but it takes more energy, just because every time you need to overcome this little bit of preconception that people might have, and also trying to blend in is also tiring. So I think we can all agree that especially when we're already tired, for example, from traveling, it's so much easier to spend time with people who are like you, and you don't have to all the time pretend like you're someone you're not. And it's something that needs to be acknowledged and not denied. So also trying to, speak to other women in my position, and there's not that they don't exist. And when you find them, it's really refreshing and uplifting.
Yeah. You're touching on some really important points, Florence. You're saying you feel like you need to blend in, you need to behave in a certain way. What, in your view, what would happen if you didn't try to blend in and fit in? Would that, in your view, be ultimately maybe closed doors in terms of clients or financing? I mean, because it seems that you need to play sort of into the old world, and you are not given the opportunity to redefine the rules.
I think you do need to meet in the middle, probably. So you also can't expect the other side to come all the way. And I feel like, because, we are the ones that want to make the change, and the industry needs to sort of be led along the way as well. So it's not only but the fact that I'm a young woman, it's also the new technology I'm trying to bring in, which is, would change so many supply chains. I mean, instead of using one thing, they would have to use another thing. So it's a lot of changes that I'm wanting to make. Not trying to go towards them and blending in would probably mean that we're not making progress as fast as we need to. So I think there's certainly the need to do this a little bit of blending in, but I think it's also important to then find the people where you don't need to lose yourself too much. So there are the people that are willing to listen, that are ready, and finding those people and then working with them, I think it's the the best way to success, because you will be fighting less of an uphill battle, and it's more productive for both sides. So I think finding the right people that are, have come maybe halfway already as well, and meet them in the middle, and then taking it from there.
Yeah, very interesting. As I'm listening to you, I'm just wondering, in your view, what would be the role of the public sector to help you find the right people, or indeed bring about that disruption that is needed in order to indeed green the chemical sector? So how could the public authorities, whether it's a commission, European Commission, or the EIB as a public finance institution, how can we help you?
One thing is lobbying. We're still, competing with an industry that has been optimized over 150 years or so, which at the beginning also was highly subsidized, and in some areas still is highly subsidized. I mean, look, globally, the fossil fuel industry still receives huge sums of subsidy. So one thing would be to, level the playing field, just in terms of, economically, in terms of that, making the money available for the investment that is required, taxes, subsidies for green products, incentives, things like that. But then also, public procurement, for example, having sustainable requirements, for example, is certainly something that can help. The UK, for example, has recently also increased its bioethanol mandate from E5 to E10, which is, just today I saw that one of the bioethanol facilities is going back online. They were shut for about 8 years because the market conditions weren't right. So a lot is really, it can be just a change of policy, and that can make a huge difference for an entire industry. So yeah, those are certainly the things that can be done for for the whole industry. Specifically now for startups, I think, especially for a startup like us, who, we're developing a chemical process. It takes a very long time. All those VCs that are used to software, they're just going to turn away. Like, the time horizons we're looking at are way too long. The amount of money we need is substantially more. A lot of it goes into hardware, actually buying machinery, reactors, pumps, vessels, which not many VCs want to invest in. They like creating jobs, but buying steel is not that sexy. And I think making money available specifically for things like that, we will have a huge impact if we get there, but it does take a long time and a lot of money to get there. And that needs to be understood. It's not a quick fix. And yeah.
No, my God, you're touching on actually so many points that are coming up in all our sort of market assessment studies that we have done in various on various sectors. So the role of regulation, the enabling regulation, the role of the public sector to give you a market, be your big first maybe client, customer, and then on the financing, the need for long-term patient capital that comes in early and takes the risk and stays there longer, and with bigger amounts than what currently is available, indeed, in the sort of more mainstream venture capital market. Now, these are all important points, and indeed, not to want to put in necessarily a plug for the EIB, but indeed we have some instruments like the Energy Demo Project instrument, which very much tackle that for companies that are moving from a sort of demonstration pilot to a commercial sort of stage. But you're absolutely spot on in the need and the analysis. I mean, you're spot on, but also, I mean, it very much is spot on with what we hear from the market. No, very interesting. So Adriana, you are coming in from the consumer industry, but you have a supply chain that is obviously quite, perhaps male dominated, as you were saying to us a bit earlier. Yes. Tell us, so how, what are indeed the barriers, the opportunities? How are you helping to redefine this sort of ecosystem that you're operating in?
I think to say firstly the positive things, I think we need more women in the industry, all the industries. And what we are doing, me, Florence, and Sandra, is we are taking the front line. We are pushing that. I give you an example. Last year in December, I was working with a factory here nearby, like 30 minutes from here. We are very strong with footwear production here in Portugal, and in my area, we have factories all over every corner, say like that. And I deeply believe I have to cut a relationship with the factory, because Zuri, one of my strategies to start this project is because I have very good knowledge about materials, production, and so we could get better prices if we buy all the raw materials and we just place the orders and buy the labor in the factories. So they somehow storage my raw materials, the factories that I'm working with. So last year, what he did was we were in COVID, there were not so much orders, so we pick all my raw materials and produce shoes without telling me. So we select the colors, the models, and then he called me saying, look, I have a very good thing to tell you. Now, when you want shoes, I can deliver it the next day or even today. And I say, how? Because we have always this struggling of deliveries, timings, and so on. Said, oh, I select some models that you buy a lot, and I produce them, and I'm doing the stock. You don't need to pay when you need. You ask me. So let's say the real thing is he picked my materials or mine without asking me, and produce shoes because he didn't want to send people home. If he picked the phone and called me and explained that to me, saying, look, if I don't produce shoes, I will send people home. And I don't want to do that, because it's also a human argument. Do you understand? But do you mind that we produce some shoes in advance and you select the colors or the models? And I'm going to tell you, of course, I will be flexible with him, because for me, it's very important, the part of social, and the people that produce our shoes, they have, even here in Portugal, it's fair trade, but it's the people that receive less salary. So we want to protect those people. That's my spirit. But he did everything, and in the end, he wanted to say that it was a good thing for me. And I deeply believe if I was a man, he would never produce the shoes. He would never call me saying, I do a good thing for you last week. I produced 1,000 pairs of shoes without asking you. So for me, I'm telling you this story because in the end, he was a good partner in other situations. But I went there in the same week with a truck, and I picked all my stuff. And I said, I would never work with you again, because it's not a matter of shoes. It's a matter you respect a woman. You understand? So now I'm taking all orders are canceled, and I'm going to take you to the court, and you are going to pay all the materials. In the end, we found the solution, because I was also nervous in that moment. I don't want to ruin the life on anyone. But for me, what made me nervous was I deeply felt, because I was a woman, it was easy to do that. And it was less respect because I was a woman. I don't have a proof. I cannot prove it. But in all my relationships with factories, I felt like Florence is saying, sometimes I have to act as a man somehow. So I have to, in factories, they yell, there's some way of working that's a little bit rude. So if you are very sensitive, if you are very educated, you are not listened. So sometimes I have also to dress another clothes, let's say like this. And of course, is like Florence was saying, it's not good. We have so much to focus on our day life that we lose energy on that. And but I started with the positive thing that I feel today, that when I started, even before I have Zuri, I was a product director in a safety shoe brand. So imagine also very, very, you go to a safety fair, trade show, and you can see that, like Florence was saying, maybe some saleswoman, but it's a man's world. And I think I learned my lesson in that time. That is, we are equal. It's us that have to believe the equal, and we are not flexible. For me, you have to punch in the table. You have to say, no more. I don't pay you if you don't respect me. So it's the way I do things with factories. So I'm a very bad woman. Let's say like this, when I say bad, I'm not. But sometimes what I feel sad is they are good people. It's really a matter of culture, not respecting a woman. And this factory that I was sharing this story, we are restarting the work with them in January, because it was our first factory. I'm very emotional about this. It was the ones that we started, and we had a good conversation 2 months ago, and I decided to give it a try again, because for me, it's not about creating a war. It's about changing the way people feel and see a woman. And I think we have to always, it's like sustainability. We won't change the world in one step. So we need small steps. And if we aren't flexible, we won't change anything. So we have to also forgive, give second chances. Otherwise, we won't get there. So that's my vision. Things are better. I feel other women are also stepping ahead. Even here in Portugal, a lot of entrepreneurs are women. And I think we inspire them, they will inspire others. So it's like a domino. Nobody's going to stop us now. That's my vision.
That's really, no, it's very inspiring, sort of this paying forward and leading by example. As you say, also really not, you know, with your actions, you are, you know, they may be small, but they really compounded, have a major impact on an industry, and the way, you know, the suppliers are now going to work with you, and the more successful and bigger you become, the more impact and, you know, and power you will have.
Shiva, we have a good example in the consume area, that is the CEO of Patagonia, that is doing such a good impact also in the world, but also inspiring other women. So we have a lot of women that are references now, and that is, it's very important. But we should not forget that the change is very hard. And even when you are talking about the public strategy, policy, I feel very sad about that. I'm always talking about, for instance, our products are sustainable, are locally made. We compete with products that are not sustainable, that are not made in Europe, with the same taxes. So in the end, when you to push the question that you placed to Florence, I think the best help the European government can give us is some of a protection, that what is sustainable, what is protecting the planet should have lower taxes. So in the end, it's equally the shelf. A product that doesn't respect anyone or any plant or any animal pay the same taxes that my shoe, that has all this impact program, that we are very obsessed with every detail in the shoe, every material. And most of the customers don't even imagine the quest it was, the water glue on shoes. 1 year testing water glues because we didn't want to use polyurethane glue. So some very small details that when you work with the heart, with purpose, you go deep. And then when you go to the shelf, you are equal to others. So when the governments don't help to create the difference, it's very hard for us, as a woman or as a man, because there are men also doing great stuff in sustainability. So that is my point for the governments and to European laws.
I think you're making some really very insightful recommendations. So, I mean, if I understood you correctly, you're saying, you know, maybe the sales tax that consumers pay perhaps should be different when it is a sustainable product versus a non-sustainable product. No, I think, you know, these are really important, I think, ideas. Let me ask you, in terms of your demographics, Adriana, who is buying your shoes? Are there more women, more men, younger, older? Do you have a sense?
Yes, in the beginning were more women. Right now it's very half and a half. So men and women buying. We understood in our communication we were only using women, and then when we changed the communication, having photos of also with men, things start growing also with men, but mainly it's 25, 55 people, young parents very concerned about the future they are going to leave to their kids. People are already changing their habits in food. Not only so there is already a path they are doing, zero waste, and so there's a profile very connected to it, the people that are concerned with the situation of the planet. And since we start until now, what COVID didn't help, it's true, but we felt that before COVID appeared, this group was enlarging, so it was growing. So people concerned with their day life, changing little habits, maybe start buying food that is organic, or and with COVID, people lost a little bit of their financial conditions, or even they don't feel so confident, and they change a little bit. So I think things went a little bit back. I want to believe that that will disappear after COVID disappear, but it's growing. It's in the beginning, we were more focused on vegan people, vegan group. And right now, because sustainability group was very difficult to understand if it was big, small. And right now, we feel that there's a lot of flexitarians, what they call that, people that eat meat, but are very motivated to change things in their lives. And I'm very positive about that. What we wanted to do, Shiva, you know, is to create sustainable shoes for everyone.
Yes.
When we started, it was kind of an elite. What is organic, bio, sustainable? And I was very criticized by, even to clients criticize me, that we could sell much more expensive the shoes because it worth it, like they said.
Yes.
And I said, yes, but I'm Portuguese, and there's a lot of people in this world that cannot afford to pay 150 euros for a pair of shoes. So we are willing to have a lower margin, that so that everyone can have access to the product. So
wonderful.
This is not about the business, what I'm saying.
Yes.
It's about purpose. So
absolutely, no, it's really wonderful. I mean, we should really look into go into your website and get ourselves our own pair of shoes. Zuri. Absolutely. Listen, let's move to Sandra. So Sandra, please share your views on take it as you wish, on the positive side, negative side. How are you seeing your what can help you to become more successful in your industry? How are you planning to change the ecosystem, and what would you expect from the public sector to support you?
Sorry, every time I need to speak, she's doing something weird.
No worries. She's welcome to join us on screen, of course.
No. Sorry, just.
I think this is a beautiful example to show.
That's a nightmare.
No, I know, but it's a nightmare for you indeed. But it also shows that indeed women are still, how important it is to have actually the right support structures in place. And I can only empathize with you.
Yeah, well, I usually do, but then I speak, so that's the problem.
I know.
No, but if I can
Go
just,
ahead,
I will be quick. So in my case, I'm not sure what.
Yes, she wants to be on stage. So are you on mute?
Yeah, it's okay.
Excellent.
So yeah, I think in my case, I'm not sure what's the most challenging part, if it's being a woman, being young, not even being a scientist in this biotech world, which is very complicated, or being a fully disruptive innovation. But what I've noticed, which is kind of sad, is that in the first years of Glowy, it actually has helped me to be a woman, because there's so few of them that it's really easier to be noticed, which is sad, but it has helped. And I think it's also a way to, we need to benefit from that. Like, we are few in this hard, deep tech world. And this is also a way for us to be on stage and to try to get over these barriers that exist. And also I've figured out that, and I've always said that to myself in the past 7 years, is that we have a lot of like our own barriers. We also put to ourselves our own barriers. We can, yes. 5 minutes? You can just 5 minutes. So I think the most important thing that we have to do as women is that don't consider that we're different in the business world. And I guess that the other people, because usually the thing that we're facing is that it's not an intention that we are excluded or treated differently. It's just mentalities that are built that way. So if we manage to just tell ourselves that we are just the same, then it's easier for us to act normal and go over these mental barriers. So and I also think it doesn't look like that, but being a mom helps in this business. It helps because it's also a way when you're an entrepreneur doing all these hard challenges, and especially when you're trying to work on climate change, which is long and you need to be patient. You also need to have something else in your life that makes you keep going and keep fighting. And I think being a mom is also something that's very interesting in terms of how do you de-dramatize your job, and you're here, you're giving everything for your work and changing the world basically, but you also are allowed to fail, but before failing you need to try. So I think we have to try, we have to fight, and having these things in life like children also helps thinking about how we can keep fighting, but also de-dramatizing the fact that we might fail, because we all have risky business and we know that. And I think as a woman, it's also complicated to authorize ourselves to fail. And this is something that pushes you harder every day.
No, thank you so much, Sandra. I mean, I think you really touch on a very important point, to give ourselves the opportunity to experiment, to fail, because that's part of that's part of the innovation process. And women or men, there should not be any distinction on that one. I mean, women and men should have the same opportunities to succeed and fail. I think what you're touching on is an extremely important point, because our study that we did, or our, looking at the data, suggested indeed that, women may sometimes be more risk averse. And I'm just wondering whether it is indeed, as you were saying, this fear of failure. And hence what I find quite inspiring is how the three of you are actually turning that fear into courage and you don't need to be empowered. You're taking the power from within that you have to really change the world around you. I think that is truly remarkable. We are coming towards the end of our panel. Time flies when it's so interesting. So we have a few more minutes. Perhaps, we have in fact 3 more minutes. So why don't I give each one of you just maybe a final word. What would you what would success for you look like in 5 years from now? So starting with Florence, what would you like to see your company be in 5 years?
I mean, having a full-scale plant operating and turning waste wood into input materials for chemical processes, actually, having it out there real, because we're still building our pilot plant now, and it's still a long way to go. But in 5 years' time, hopefully we'll be fully operational, commercial, actually, having the impact that we've worked for all these years already.
Excellent. And what would you be doing in 5 years? Where do you see yourself?
That's a very good question. I actually like the sort of early part of like having an idea, working out the I'm a scientist at the moment. We're very much doing engineering, and I feel like I'm definitely stretching my my capabilities there. I'm more more of a chemist than a chemical engineer. So I think if the opportunity exists, I would like to, you know, start with a new chemical process and work on a different challenge, and hopefully take it from there and hand this challenge over to the people who are qualified to actually carry it out, the engineers that are needed for it.
Wonderful. A serial entrepreneur in the making. So really, no, absolutely wonderful. Adriana, how about you? 5 years from now?
I hope in 5 years reach 1 million pairs of shoes sold. This year we'll close with 10,000, so it's a long way to go. I hope the program with the schools, right now we just work with 3 municipalities, that we can cover all Portugal. Also, we have a collaboration with O'Neill that was launched this year, that we expect that will, in 5 years, because the collaboration is planned 2, but I expect it continues, that we could reach these numbers, the cleanup numbers, the amount of plastic. So we are really open to connect with other projects that want to join our technology, and we can scale the use of plastic from the ocean. So in 5 years, I hope this collaboration grows, we grow, the awareness program is applied to all Portugal, and we can think about scaling the awareness program and the cleanups out of Portugal to Spain and the rest of Europe. Myself, I can tell you.
And yourself, where would you be?
In 5 years, I hope we have one of the goals we have in the company is we need to grow the team. So I hope in 5 years I can have a work of 8 hours a day, because right now it's kind of impossible.
Impossible, indeed. My God, yes, absolutely. Very nice. In 5 years, Sandra, where would Chloe be, and where will you be?
Well, I hope that Chloe will be a standard on the lighting market, and not just a real thing happening in the lab by a little French startup. So it's really a matter of democratizing, sensibilizing, and changing the whole philosophy behind lighting in cities. And that's where we want to be in 5 years. And personally, I would like to have the feeling that I gave everything, no matter where we are in terms of results, but that I gave everything to achieve this goal. And I'm a bit like Florence. I know my strengths, and I know that maybe in 5 years, I won't be the best person to be here and keep growing the company. But I made a promise to myself that as soon as I feel that I'm bringing something to it, I will just stay there. And if someone is a better person, then I will like leave and leave this for someone else to grow the company. And so all the decisions that I will take in terms of strategy of growth and maybe fundraising and doing an exit will depend on how can we maximize this impact and build this particle industry.
Excellent. Well, I mean, I think, this brings us to the end of this really inspiring and fascinating panel discussion. A big thank you to our brilliant panelists, Florence, Adriana, and Sandra. Thank you for sharing your stories. We wish you every bit of success. You are really the true standard bearers and excellent examples of how women can innovate to tackle climate change. So without any further ado, we close this panel. We're really excited that the EIB Institute actually identified you. You were finalists in the tournaments, and hope that you will benefit from further support from the European Union and many other private and public investors. All the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.